you're a student in landscape design, you spend hours painstakingly trying to make curvilinear geometry, and we use these tools here, which is a French curve. Now, in this garden, the landscape designers succeeded in meandering curves of concrete with drifts of plants and undulating iron, and it turns out to be this really beautiful ocean of perfect curves. So how about we go and find out how they did that? And who needs these?
I couldn't wait to get here, and I didn't want to leave. Sometimes I'd stay here till the sun went down, and sometimes I'd get here an hour before the crew got here. There's a connection here, a warmth, you know. You get the wind that comes right at you. You get the sound of the water. You're kind of like sitting in this little valley of homes. Most of it was wild and just hillside. When I first landed here, I felt a connection here. I don't know what, I couldn't explain it at the time. I've never done any kind of landscape project in my life. This is the first of a kind for me. I've been in the concrete business for 40 years now. I'm a third-generation cement mason. And so I've done a lot of squares and rectangles. I bought a French curve for the first time last semester. I didn't know what a French curve was.
Victor called me, and then I went over and saw the site, and I mean, it was insane. I couldn't believe it. 70-some houses looked down at that garden. So the views were everything at that site. So Victor was hired because they had a sculpture to mount.
So given that this was a hillside, I started leveling off this little pad right here so I can work comfortably. And then my creative side kicked in and I started shaping it into what you see today. And while I was shaping it, the owner came out to take a look at how I set the statue and said to me, we love what you're doing. Our property goes all the way 160 feet that way, 90 feet this way. Do whatever you want. A fear kicked in that I can't blow this opportunity. Maybe he saw something that I didn't even see because I didn't know I was going to do this.
The Doellstedts wanted color, and they didn't want trees. They didn't want to block the views. So by the time I got there, the concrete was down. For me, it looked like water.
I decided I'm going to do the currents of the ocean and waves and surround this tail with that kind of movement. The curvatures of the walls, the dripping of the steps, rounded, you know. Different walls are colliding as if they were currents. When I look at a piece of paper and I get ready to draw something, I look at the paper constantly with my eyes, and then I see it. I see the stroke, the first stroke. I did the same thing with the hillside. And then I came down and I set my mock forms, which give me like a three-dimensional gesture drawing. You know, almost 4 years later, there's almost 13,000 square feet of walls and walks.
The space, when I got there, was empty, except for Victor's walls. So there was nothing there. What I do is I just gather all the information. It's like, where are the views to open? Where are the views to block? What is the view from the house? Where is the view when you walk down the path? How fast are you going to be going when you go down, you know, a certain path? Where do you stop? Where do people gather, right? And so that's all information that you use to build the landscape. It was like a perfect site. It was full exposure, really rich sandy soil. And so I thought, oh my God, this is perfect because we can put all Mediterranean plants in. We We brought in plants from Australia and South Africa and the Mediterranean Basin and Chile. I mean, it's the full combo of it, a lot of Australian plants. That landscape I think it's got a little bit of additional water on occasion, but mostly the irrigation's off. It's a proof that the Mediterranean palette works in California. I got so excited by it that I would order truckloads of plants, and I remember Lisa from Rosendale Nursery, she says, "Boy, Kelly, you have balls." You know, and I said, "Yeah." She says, "You are so brave." And I said, "Yeah, you know, I am. But I was excited, you know, and I knew that it would work because I'd researched it. I took all of the classes, you know. I listened to Chris Graham, I listened to him. And I knew that I was within all the information that I had gathered.
If I were to guesstimate how much money was invested in this project, I would have to say close to 1.4 million. Concrete alone is probably 3/4 of that. You're talking about concrete pours once a week for 4 years with a crew of an average of 10 guys. Bring in materials, rebar, gravel, base rock, waterproofing, drainage, you name it. I mean, this was an expensive project.
In the beginning, when we put the plants in, I call it moonscaping because from a distance you can't even tell it's planted. But soon enough, real quick, the plants will start to fill in. The hardwood plants, I like to give the space required so that they filled out beautifully. So the larger elements were put in first, the large forms. You always start with the trees. We didn't have very many. We put one tree right in front of the door, and that is a Ixonia, and it came from Annie's Annuals, and it was a 4-inch. Right, it is huge now. But I think that goes to say a lot about the Mediterranean plants. I mean, they're tough. Then the medium size and the grasses, and then you design the edges. Certain plants don't want to grow on the edge of the hot concrete. The ECHEVERIA's ELEGANS seems to love it. So they were so happy, we just kept going with that. So that's how we started to master it. It took a while so we could tell how responsive the plants were going to be when we put them in.
If I were to say how I was going to complement this design with the house, so it looks like it's a part of it, the base color to the stain is the color of the house. The house itself is mostly squares and rectangles, although it has a beautiful sweeping staircase, which acts as an introduction to the curves. But at the same time, that is tricky. How do you put squares and rectangles next to these curves and make them part of each other? I cut the flagstone patio into an opening, and then my concrete came into it like water. So it's almost like the water overflowed onto the asphalt and it froze like that. And then you got to make it all come together. And what do? Do you just connect it straight forward, or do you need to find a way for this relationship of walls that have been meandering and leading to each other for almost 4 years and finally meet for the first time? How do you make them meet? How do you introduce these two strangers where they finally, boom, there's like a little celebration, like a greeting, you know? It's got to be done just so you feel it. You got to feel it.
When I saw it, I thought of it as being fluid, and that there were waves, but that the plants could flow over them. The beds don't determine the shape of the planting, so the planting will jump over the stairs. As many plants as I could, if I put them on one side of the garden, they were on the other side, so that the layers of the garden came together and the stairs went through. Anytime, you bring a little something down, like it's liquid, like it's water spilling down, then it jumps the stairs and it goes over to the other side. It's a thread that goes through. Then you want to repeat it again. The plants stitch the whole thing together for you. And so you need to repeat them in order for visually your eye to see it all as one.
So sometimes design comes out of necessity too. The son of the owner, halfway through this project, was riding his bicycle with his friend on a bike path, and a car got off the track and hit them both, killed his friend instantly, and the son of the owner of the garden became paraplegic. I wanted the wheelchair to be able to come up this ramp and go straight to the house, where before these steps were going to continue straight down. Now you're dealing with having to be creative for the sake of safety, for the sake of practicality. It's a whole different mindset. And then it got to the point where we needed some handrails. But we didn't want just your ordinary handrail that was already prefabbed. Robert came over here with his portfolio. Old school, who physically stuck each and every piece of this iron into the fire and hit by hand. Took him about 1.5 years to complete. It's custom to each curve of the walls and walks. And I never told him what to do, no more did I tell Kelly what to do. I think they just respected the ocean currents and the flow of that. And it was almost like an unspoken agreement.
It was all about color. Jeannie Doellstedt wore bright, bright pink suits and beautiful stone brooches, and she wanted color. We wanted to make sure that the garden had that reflection of her. I did a lot of plants that had red leaves and, silver leaves, and played with the leaf color. You contrast it, so that's going to make it flash. So it's, you put a variegated green by a deep red maroon, boom, that's dynamic. So that's what we did. Those are our natives, those are Monterey cypress. Right, and then also the rush with the dark brown tips. Melianthus major, I like that plant. Yeah, it's got a crazy flower on it and the big toothy leaves. That toothy leaf with something soft, like a nice feathery grass. And you have this crazy garden called the Wave Garden.
There was creativity happening on 3 different levels all at once. And I think those were my fondest times.
Everybody worked together beautifully. There's a lot of respect there. So, everybody was happy. And I think that's what gardens are about.
I'm learning that there's not just one way or one reason to design something. And then if you're lucky, like I was, you'll design something that will give you a little treat, like that silhouette once a year. The perfect shadow of the whale's tail will come across that wall, and it'll just be for maybe 2 weeks. Now that was unplanned, almost to tell you, you put the wall in the right place. There's something outside of me telling me that that's exactly where that wall needed to be.
Now, I don't think I would have done that garden too much differently now, this many years after, but when I plant landscapes now, I try and limit the number of plants to like 3 or 5 and select them well, make sure they do well in the environment, and pick ones that are really beautiful together, and then that's all you need to say. Make sure that they, give back to the environment in some way, and they don't take a lot of resources. And I think that gives you the highest sense of visceral comfort.
So how about we learn together from the most creative and talented landscape architects in California? Do not miss the next release. Hit on the subscribe button. Until then, have fun drafting. Bye-bye.